Okay, can you guys see better travel and family photography?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, well, let's see if this all works then. Gotta click once over there. Okay, I'm gonna do this for the third Wednesday of the month for 3 months. And the first one is pretty much photography and camera basics. Um, Session two, a month from now, is more advanced concepts and composition. And session three is going to be about post-processing and then what can be done there, which is everything nowadays. So um, one of the things I'd like to do is just each of the people on the call at least say what brand camera, what kind of camera you're using. Betty?
I have two Canons that I use. One is the R6 and the other is a PowerShot.
Good. Okay, Stephen?
Um, the model number, I'm not sure. You might know, Patrick, but it's a Sony, a smaller, more or less an automated camera.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, it doesn't have to be automated. I saw that. It's
Yeah.
kind of the predecessor to the 6000. So yeah, it's a nice little camera.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, Glenn?
Well, I think everyone knows Pentax, the K1, which is the full frame, and the K3, which is the crop.
Yeah.
Mostly the full frame, though.
Yeah. And Don?
Sony A7R3.
Okay. So no one here claiming we all use our cell phones, but no one claiming that's their only camera. So, okay.
Well, I use the cell phone as well, but I don't, I prefer a camera.
Yeah,
I think you got to
I
look
do
at the
too.
definition. I mean, I use the cell phone too, but for snapshots, not for photography.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I see a really good shot that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have the cell phone. And so if I look at all the shots that I have in all the photos that I have in Lightroom Classic, um, my guess is less than 1% of them were from a cell phone.
Yeah.
But there's a few
Well, I
of
think
them.
that's the operative. You might, if you're out and the only camera you got is your cell phone, that's great. But if you're
Right.
going to make a trip, you're going to take your real camera, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
okay. So one of the things that always is what makes a good photograph? And basically, I think if it does a few things, one is it tells a story of some kind. Um, and we've all seen some photojournalistic shots of war zones that are, phenomenal because they tug at your heart, or pets, both good and bad. Um, and that if the photo captures enough, some of the technical capture parts are a little less important. But generally, you want to have it technically good, that it's in focus and exposed acceptably, particularly with the intent that you made it. Because occasionally, I know every once in a while, I really take the exposure way down. It's way underexposed on purpose. Um, I think there's times when you can get some really captured stuff when it's nearly all black, where little spots come jumping at you. And then of course, good composition, and we'll cover all those, and mostly in the second session. I had a long time ago, somebody made this comment to me: the good photography is kind of like good wine. You can't make great wine with bad grapes, but great grapes don't make good wine. They're just one of the ingredients. Same thing's true in photography. The other one that's along the same line, instead of grapes, it's, you know, is a cook's not good because they have a great stove and pots and pans. It's just, that's not, on a knife. That's not why they're good. and there's just the tools to get the job done. And those great photos are kind of like those other things, cooking or for that matter, even a golf shot. It's not the clubs on the golfer, it's the golfer or the cook or the photographer that
So
makes
you're
it.
saying I wasted several $1,000s on new clubs?
Yeah, yeah. I just wasted 400 on a new driver. Yeah, does it go further? Yes, when I hit it right. Okay. Yeah. And not a lot. I mean, if I yeah. After I got it for Christmas, so I haven't used it a lot, but over the course of the year, I will not recover at $1 a shot better. I will not recover my $400, I don't think. So, um, of course, there's lots of different kinds of cameras. Point and shoot. I think those are pretty much dead, if not dying, um, because the cell phone's gotten so good. Um, then there's the fixed lens camera where you can't change the lens. This Nikon down here is one of those. And then there's several, and the category for these two used to be called DSLR, but that's with a reflex. And uh, the film camera and the mirrorless camera, all three of them have one thing in common. They are interchangeable lens cameras. So this category, which is generally a high-end camera, uh, be it might be old, is now generally referred to as an ILC, interchangeable lens camera. And there was one guy I thought would be on today that I don't think he's on. And he's saying, well, which camera should I get? And well, it's like, well, what do you need and what are you going to pay for it? Because there's kind of a big price range in these. Understanding camera basics. I mean, the kind of the key to an awful lot of things is the exposure triangle. That's getting your exposure right, which is a combination of aperture, shutter speed, and the sensor speed, which is called ISO, or it used to be called ASA. This picture of my Canon TX, that was my first film camera. I don't know, 72, something like that. And I no longer have it. When we moved to the desert, I finally said, you know what? The only thing neat about that camera was watching it actually work, where you could actually see it do everything. When you advanced the film, you could see what it was doing. When you cocked it and moved the shutter over to one side, you could see it do that. When you tripped the shutter, you could see it do that. Nah, not anymore with the new cameras. But we're going to talk a lot about aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Both these cameras have focal plane shutters. The most of the new cameras have a focal plane shutter, although there are a few now that are going with only electronic shutters, not a mechanical shutter whatsoever. There's some issues with that, particularly when you start using flash or strobe lights, but they're working through it, and I'm glad my camera has a shutter, a focal plane shutter on it. One of the nice things on some brands, when I take the lens off, it makes sure that the shutter is closed so that any dust in the air doesn't get down to the sensor, which is behind the shutter. So, and then there's the old mirror or mirrorless, and mirrored cameras. You can still buy brand new mirrored cameras, but you don't see very many people doing that. Clearly, the industry is going mirrorless. And there's one little thing that most people don't even know exists on their camera, and that's a depth of field preview. I've often told people that when you have a mirrorless camera, you have in your viewfinder or on the back of the camera, what you see is what you get. Well, it's actually not quite true. Because the aperture is wide open. And then when you actually take it, it changes everything to what it really does. And if you want to see that effect, which would be to give it a greater depth of field, you press there's a little button on most cameras. It's usually here, I mean, right bottom of the lens. On mine, on one side is the lens release, and on the other side is the depth of field preview. So if you ever wonder what that little button is there, that's what it is. And
Thank
if you
you.
want to
I
see it
didn't know
work,
that.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't, and I forget that it's there. And so you're shooting wide open. I mean, what you're seeing is the wide open view of it, compensated for what it calculates the real exposure to be, which is right on the money. I mean, it knows what it's going to put on the sensor. But in terms of true depth of field, it isn't showing that yet. Camera modes. I use the one that's on so many cameras, and depending on which brands you have, this will look a little bit different, but the modes aren't very different. Every one I know of has all these functions in an ILC that's even recent. I mean, my good old TX didn't have these. That was a manual camera, but anything in the last 20 years has all these, and probably more like 30 or 40. Anyhow, we'll go through them all. I'll start with A or auto. Auto, and that's fully automatic. You can't do anything, at least on all the cameras that I've had and I've tried to work with. When it's in auto, it picks everything. Including the focus point, you can do little things depending on the camera and what their autofocus mechanisms are. It might pick a person's face because you told it to do that, but you can't change it. That's where it's going. I really would encourage everyone to never use auto. And if you want auto functions, use the P, which stands for programmed, which does everything that auto does, except that you can change things. If you want to change the focus point with programmed, you can, but you don't have to. If you want to change the shutter speed, you can, but you don't have to. Same thing with AV. It'll make all the rest of the adjustments for you. So it knows what a proper exposure is, and it's going to finish whatever it is. And the only time my camera goes into auto is when I'm out with people and I hand my camera to a waiter and say, look through the viewfinder and press click. It's in auto because it'll do everything and he can't screw it up. I said, if what he sees is what he's going to get. So that works pretty well. The T or S, depending on the manufacturer, is shutter priority, typically used to when you either want to see movement or want to freeze something. So it has to do with movement. You would use the T. That would be your basic choice. And then there's the AV or aperture priority automation exposure, and that would be what you use when you want to control the depth of field, because aperture is what controls the depth of field. And so you can control it as much as you want, or as much as your lens allows. Manual, you do it all. Every setting is yours. bulb, and not all cameras have it. This one did, but allows you to have an exposure as long as you want. Um, Either you press and hold, or you press and with a remote, and then when you press or release, it ends. It kind of depends on the way it's set up. Um, but it's for really long exposures. Almost all cameras with the built-in timer can do 30 seconds. So if you need a 5-minute exposure, you'd have to go to bulb. And then these other four are automated scenes. And so like the running person would be, it's going to effectively do a shutter priority shot for you. Landscape, it's going to try to go to um, high high aperture numbers, small aperture, high aperture numbers like f/22 or f/16. It'll lean toward that to make sure the whole thing's in focus. The little tulip one is that's for close-ups, and the other one's kind of leaning for portraits. And what the camera knows and how much it can do varies on how old it is and how much you know about it. But I think every camera in the last 20 or 25 years that's a ILC has something like this built in. Any questions about all that? Because this is kind of a really important piece. Okay. Image settings, image quality, big debate about JPEG or RAW. I don't think there's much of an argument that you can get a very, very slightly improved image if you shoot in RAW, because nothing's been messed with. It is straight off the sensor. There's no manipulation being done. However, those raw files pretty much can't do anything. You have to have software somewhere along the way that converts them to a more standard function like JPEGs or PNGs before you can do things like put them on the web. And it's interesting when we had Keith Birmingham speak, and I know a couple of sports photographers that work sports for a living, and they just shoot JPEG. Well, because they're journalists, and one of the rules for journalists is you can't mess with the photo. You can do a little bit of change to exposure and to color, but it has to be to the whole image. You can't take a person and make them brighter or not that, or take them out of focus or remove them. And so if you're going to be able to do any of those, the JPEG works pretty good. And it is a lot smaller because it uses what's referred to as lossy compression, so that it takes it and compresses it. And when you uncompress it, you don't have as much data as when you started. You lose data. And if you were to take a JPEG, this is, in my opinion, one of the advantages of Lightroom Classic, is if you take a JPEG and edit it and save it as a JPEG, and they say, oh, now I want to make another change. You bring in that edited JPEG and make more changes to it and save it as a JPEG. And every time you do that, it's throwing away a lot of data. And if you do that 4 or 5 times, your photo will be substantially reduced in quality. ISO, formerly ASA, it's just a number that represents slow, 50 in most cameras, to somewhere over 100,000, depending on what today's bragging rights are. Although anything, anywhere near 100,000 while you captured the picture, it's not going to be the world's best picture in terms of image quality. Low ISO numbers produce very clean photos. High ISO numbers look grainy. They can lose color definition, particularly the shadows get bad. And some of that's Lightroom and Topaz have, and there's some other programs as well that can clean up these grainy high ISO photos and make them mucho better looking. What is considered high depends mostly on how old the camera is and a little bit how much you paid for it. Pros, 3200, 6400. The other day I was shooting in nearly the dark and I got up to around 20K because otherwise there was no picture. And you do what you have to do, but generally you can get an ISO below those kinds of numbers. That the one I was talking about that had to be handheld, and I was shooting at some distance, 200 feet, and so the odds I couldn't use a really fast shutter speed, so that's what forced the ISO so high. Focus. This used to be true. I haven't removed it because I still think it's generally true. If you don't focus it right and you take the picture, it's not focused. That's that. And you'll never get it really, really sharp. You can get it, you can improve it, but you can't get it perfect. You can't get it tack sharp. AI and products like Topaz, and there's some in the Adobe products. They can make things look sharper, but it's not really improving the focus. It's just improving the sharpness of edges, and which isn't the same thing as having it properly focused. Where do you focus? You focus almost always. If you have people in the picture, you want to focus on things. And if it's not that, the center of attention, what is it that you're taking a photo of? What's the interesting spot? Focus on that. The most common focus errors, blurs, are caused by a number of potential things. Probably the most common is camera shake. And your shutter speed is generally pretty slow, and you were never a gunman, and you snap the picture rather than squeeze off the picture. Guys that use rifles know that you aim and it's almost a surprise when it goes off. Well, you have to be a little faster than that with photography, but that's kind of the right way to think about it. You don't want to jerk the trigger. Another one is with all this automation, particularly when you're running an auto, the camera just picking the wrong spot. I know I can, on my camera, it's got some really nice functions called eye focus, and you can say it's either people or animals or vehicles, or there's some other ways you can have it tracked.
Person detected is at the ADO front door.
The Mahjong group is now leaving. We're going to hear a few people leave. Okay. The other one is the object's actually moving. Okay. Got some examples of how you deal with that in the second session. But here's one that was a 200 millimeter lens at a 50th of a second with all lens stabilization turned off. And that's kind of photo you get. It's just, that's 50th of a second for 200 millimeter with normally I can do that without much of an issue, but it's not tack sharp. So here's one at 320, and it looks pretty good until you compare it to one at that same speed tripod. And when I really blow them up so you can see them, it's pretty easy to tell which was tripod and which one was handheld. Even though when you do it this size, it's hard to tell the difference. There is a difference. So having a tripod is a good piece of equipment. Is it as necessary as it used to be? And the answer is absolutely not, because now most ILC cameras have some form of stabilization, either stabilization in the lens, stabilization in the body, which is referred to as IBIS, in-body stabilization, or both. And with both, I have been able to handhold a 50 millimeter to a 25 to 50 millimeter lens at a tenth of a second or even slower. It's just amazing how far down you can now go handheld. And again, you'll get a result like this, not like that. This is acceptable until you zoom in and pixel peek. There's several ways to improve your focus prior to shooting, because to me, this is the one thing that really can't be fixed later. Fully automatic, I'll let the camera decide as the shutter button is pressed. It will focus well on the spot that it's going. It may not be the one you intended, but it'll be focused well on that zone. You can press the shutter halfway to quote lock the focus, and then move your camera to a different spot and then finish. So you've already established the thing, even if I had it pointed exactly where I want it, I press halfway down and then I can do that, and it'll remain focused on that one spot. The subject mode, newer cameras tend to have this. Human, mine breaks it down into people and animals. Some of the newer ones break it down even further than that. Mine does a vehicle as well. Actually, I've never found that to help me very much. And then a lot of people use back button focus, and once you get used to it, it's great. It's kind of interesting to learn how to get it set up. 90, Glenn, you use back button focus, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, but I think so. A bunch of the people in the club use back button focus, because I mean, what you're doing is you have a spot somewhere in your viewfinder or on the back of the camera that says this is where I'm focusing, and you get that, and when you get it on the spot you want, you press and hold this button, and it's not going to move. That's it. There's another setting. I'm not going to go into that, but that's it. You determine where it's going to focus, and then you can move your camera a little bit and focus. Back button focus is something like when it's really great is something like at a tennis match. You can set your f-stop high number, like f16, focus it on the net, and never touch the button again. Now all I do is take the picture when I think it's the right time, and it's pre-focused on the plane that you know is in the middle. With an f16, you're going to have, depending on how close you are, you're probably going to have a fair amount of space that's in focus in front and behind the focal point, and that works pretty good. That's also a good one when we go to do the horse show where they're doing the jumping. Again, you can focus on the hurdle, you know where they're going to be. I mean, if you have a lens and you're open to 2.20 or 1.8 or something like that, well, that might not be good enough. But if you're probably about f6 or higher, if you're focused on the jump, the horse is going to be in focus. And at that point, what you need to have is a high enough shutter speed to catch the horse not moving. So, in general, on cell phones, on mine, it does a pretty good job of picking the focus most of the time. And I can touch the screen, say, this is where I really want to focus it. And it does a pretty good job of staying there. So it's focus on a cell phone is one of the things that seems to do pretty well. And again, probably one of the most important things is to focus on the eyes for people and the center of attention in the image. This is a model that I was attending the class, and we had the guy that was running the class had hired a model, and we were at lunch, and she was at the next table around the patio, and I just saw her, looked over at her, and I was able to nail the focus. And this is a low resolution copy of it. I mean, not resolution copy. It pretty well focused. So I got to go back to the. There we go. The exposure triangle. I always get a kick out of people saying, what were your settings to pick that picture? And the answer is there are thousands of correct exposures for any shot. So here's the same photo taken at very, very different settings. The first one.
The river traffic parking is at the Indio platform.
And then it comes up to too. So at a wide open f1.4, 8,000 second 3200, you get this. And notice that, I mean, the depth of field is so shallow that you can see exactly where I was focused. And only that is in focus and everything else is out of focus. If I take it up to 5.6, everything's starting to come kind of into focus. And then f22, everything's pretty much in focus. But look at the settings. I mean, this one's at 1,000th of a second. This one's an 8,000th of a second. This is a 30th of a second. And yet they look almost, to the quick glance, they look the same. So what was I trying to do? In this one, I wanted very narrow, very shallow depth of field. In this one, I wanted some room. I wanted the figurine in focus. And in the third one, I wanted everything in focus, including the material that it was sitting on. So it's all about how you set it up. Yeah. Interesting. Maybe I should have taken that one, but it was the city of India. I have no idea why they were calling it. So,
Daniela Schultz or Daniela Schultz?
what?
Hold on.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. So, very simply, aperture only controls the depth of field. That's it. And you can have a lot of different aperture settings. Common ones are f2.8 and on high end f22. There are a few lenses that go down to 1.0 and a number of lenses that can go up to f32. I personally haven't seen anything higher than 32. I've got one lens that's a f1.4, which I took the picture from the last one. And these are all one stop apart. I always think it's a good idea to memorize the f-stops, where they're apart. Because sometimes you say, well, I need to make a change. I really want to shoot here, and that's 3 f-stops. I go 3 f-stops. What is that? Every f-stop either doubles or cuts the amount of time in half to get the equal amount of exposure. And so I can say, oh, I'm going from f2.8 and f5.6. F4 is double, f double again, so it's 4 times, 8 times, etc. And the other way to look at it is how much light's getting to the sensor. At f22, almost nothing is getting to the sensor. And at f2.8, everything's getting to the sensor. At f2.8, you have a very shallow depth of field. At f22, you have a very great depth of field, a large depth of field. So this is kind of an important one to have, at least a middle picture of the depth. Here's the size of the opening. There's a number that tells us the mathematical calculation. It tells the amount of light that's going through the sensor. Each f-stop is a doubling. Full f-stop starting at 1.4 goes 1.4, 2, 2.8. Something I noticed when I first started, now I memorized this, is if you go from f1.4 to 2.0, all you have to remember, in my opinion, all you have to remember the first two, 1.4 and 2, because after that, you just keep alternating 1.4, 2, 4 doubled is 2.8, 2 doubled is 4, 2.8 doubled is 5.6, 4 is 5.6 is 11, etc. So you can just I've been known to be out there. I'm trying to calculate it. Just counting the fingers. You can see just counting the fingers. So, yeah. Anyhow, one of the things that's important is smartphones have a fixed aperture. Period. There's no moving parts. An aperture has to have a moving part. So they all have a fixed aperture. What it is varies, and I'll show you some examples in a bit. But usually it's between f1.4 and f2.2 as they do those calculations. Mine is, they said, that's 1/6 and a weird number, but you can't change it, so it doesn't matter. So it is what it is. And the adjustments are done in EV, which equals 1 EV equals 1 f-stop, and the way they're doing exposure compensation is like through the speed of the sensor and the shutter speed, which is an electronic shutter. In other words, they turn on and off the sensor. There's 4 things that control depth of field. The aperture, f1.4 is shallower than 16. And I would love to have all lenses that could go from f1.4 to f32, but those are really expensive. So I don't have all those lenses. I do have some nice lenses I paid a fair amount for. Good lenses all go to 2.8 or faster. But I didn't go nuts because the cost, for instance, on one 7200 to go from f2.8 to an f2 lens. Still the price of the lens. So it's huge. So once you get below 2.8, it starts to get really expensive to cut the speed unless it is narrower focus at like a 20 millimeter or 30. Focal length, like 100 millimeter, could have a shallower depth of field than a 20. And sensor size, this is what people forget about. Large sensors produce a shallower depth of field than a smaller sensor. That's why some old-time photographers, particularly old-time film portrait photographers, love large format cameras because they can control the depth of field at the tip of the eyelash to as deep as they want, to not as deep as they have 100% photo control. Then there's crop sensors, which reduce the size of the sensor by approximately it's 60% of the full size. So it would always have a slightly shallower depth of field than 35 millimeter and a 1x5 magnification. Smartphones, small sensor, produce a very large depth of field. That's why they're always seem like they're in focus. So, and here's this was a fun exercise I did one day and at 14-foot table I built in house in Calabasas, and I put stuff at 3, 6, 9, and 12. Yeah, 3, 6, 9, and 12. And if you go with a 2.8, 28 millimeter lens, that's this one's very much in focus. And I can read the second one, and the third one's kind of fourth one keep reading. At f22, you can read them all. If I move that same thing to a 70 lens, it doesn't look. I can't read some of it. When I go to 200, you can't even read at 6 foot. It's just on totally. It's super shallow depth of field. I just think it's kind of important to show you how much both the combination of lens and the f-stop affect the depth of field. Anything, Glenn? You're muted.
I think you pretty much covered it.
Okay.
And I did the exact same exercise in a presentation I did. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's just the way it works.
It was took an hour or two to do that. And it's one of those things where it just kind of locks up in your brain. You actually do the exercise. Right? So I think doing some of these exercises, which almost every photo in here I took. And it was that it makes giving these presentations learning experience for me. If nothing else, if I knew it already, it locks it in better. Okay, I took these today. Okay, this is with my current Samsung S24. And the real answer is most cell phones that are more than 4 or 5 years old. It's in auto most 98% of the time, and your depth of field is in the minutes. About 4 or 5 years ago, they started maybe a little more. They started putting in portrait mode, and if you put your camera in portrait mode, it played some games with the background. It said generally what it started doing is, because I could show you a few pictures. But screwed up with like it was probably 8 years ago. I did a portrait with something, and it had this part in perfect focus. And then there was a tree over here, and we didn't have, it was very close to the same plane as this. And they put it in portrait mode, and it said, no, this should be in focus, and then as you go from front to back, it should go more out of focus. And that was pretty much the way it worked. Well, it got much better than that. So now it's a much more complicated way to do this. And my newest phone, which is not quite a year old, has now a virtual f-stop. And to get it to look the same size and everything, all the different settings was hard. These two took me like 3 minutes. This one took me 45 minutes just to figure out how to get everything set so that it would approximately the same look of a little bottle atomizer. This virtual, for the way it's working, is it's doing AI depth mapping of the photo. And as it gets further away, it says, oh, that's focus. Yeah, we've got to go forward. And if you turn it up F22, it's going to bring it all into focus. I didn't try because I wasn't really fine. Cell phone cameras do a pretty good job of focusing. So I want the background out of focus that they don't do a good job at. So that's a virtual one where you can actually get a number. And I gave it a number. That was the good news. The bad news is I was now responsible for every size. I had to say, oh, here's the ISO, here's the shutter speed, here's the f-stop. But a lot of anyhow. Everybody got that? This one of the things and working on this course is that some other stuff I've done. I'm gonna spend more time learning how to use my cell phone camera. I know how to use my hand, but I'm pretty much an automatic mode cell phone person. I'm gonna pick it up and press that. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case. My cell phone has 3 lenses in it. My cell phone has 3 lenses: wide angle, a normal, and a telephoto. The biggest, smallest things I've ever seen, no, but that's pretty substantially different. So those work pretty good. And one of the things we'll do in a later session, or maybe just in a meeting, Joe Schott does this, and I've been playing with it. If you use Lightroom Mobile on your phone, and you use the camera function, like we use the camera function, when you take that picture, it goes to the cloud and then into Lightroom for a second. And now your photos there ready for them. It'll be there edited. It's really pretty cool. It's not that hard to set up. I was playing with it the other day. One of the dumbest things that I was looking for another member. How you move some photos around. Getting some of them in the cloud. So I wonder if I just take their old photos and say, put them in this cloud. And I hope that gives me all my subcategories. Hope that gives me all my stuff. The answer is it doesn't. And I had always intended to say I do all my families. Instead, it doesn't know. I wanted the answer. Does it bring down your subloads or not? On the answer, cancel that. And I need to figure out it doesn't cancel that. So I had 140,000 pictures to remove. And I did hours and hours and hours.
I'm getting an echo from you when you're talking.
Sorry.
I'm getting an echo from you when you're talking.
Yeah, I am as well.
So I'm getting an echo and also I'm getting an echo.
Yeah, I'm getting an echo as well.
I'm getting it really bad. I can barely understand him.
I'm getting it too. Yeah.
Just turned off my phone. Just turned off my phone.
Yeah, it seems that everyone else is okay when Craig talked, when Betty talked, but it was just when Don or Pat is talking.
Has this been doing it or just start?
No, it's been doing it for quite a bit.
Since the very beginning or not?
Not really at the very beginning, but just part.
It started when you were
What?
talking about the depth of focus, and it's just slowly gotten worse. So I can't understand now.
Mhm.
It sounds almost like a bad internet connection.
Yeah, it's just about what it's got to be. Something, you know, something, just, like it's sitting up here and this, is sitting up here. And got a, desktop computer and there is no other mic. And just in case, somehow, I think maybe that falls somehow. It's something on my phone, so I just.
Yeah, now you're getting really, really bad. It's getting worse and worse.
Okay. Sorry about that.
When Glenn spoke there, I could hear an echo too, not from Glenn, but from you. You have two mics on?
That's weird. It's only one mic. It's only one. It's a desktop system. Desktop system. It's a desktop system. Let him come on. Let him come on. To do and see if it helps. So I'm going to do leave that over. Let me stop share. Let me stop. Is that any better? Is that any better?
Nope.
Not really.
And it's like moving back and forth. And it's like moving back. Internet speed. Speed.
It's almost like your video and your audio are not sync.
This one. Everybody's muted now. Everybody's muted now. saw him waving goodbye. So I saw him waving goodbye. That's really wild. It's really wild. Okay, the only thing left is according to it was trying to do some noise removal. So I turned it off.
Person detected is at the end of your front door. Person detected is at the end of your front door.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just going to go back. Almost done anyhow. Betty Julie. Betty Julie. It looks like it, huh? Okay. Oh, let's finish up. I'm almost done. Let's finish up. I'm almost done. Shh. This is me. Okay. So I only had a couple slides left. Photos. Take lots of pictures. Practice. Take lots of pictures. Practice. This is a good example. Horizon. It's typically an example. Horizon. It's typically up there, middle, down. Line. Subject is typically not dead. Subject is typically not keeping things level. Keeping things horizon is level. Horizons are straight up and down. Buildings are straight up and down. Things moving into the frame. Things moving into the frame. Moving out of the frame. If this boat was placed over here, to me it's just kind of uncomfortable. It's like me, it's just kind of uncomfortable. You took too long to take the photo. When you take photographs of children, from their eye level, take pictures from their eye level. And if you have a flash, because most ILCs today don't have a built-in flash anymore, so you actually don't have a built-in flash on top. So you actually have to have a flash on top. But some of Tom's, Stevens, it's got a little built-in flash that helps. And that's nice to use. That's nice to use. Particularly if it's backlit. Okay. Homework for the next few weeks. A month from now, we meet again. Take photos. If you're using a cell phone camera, try using a cell phone camera. Try watching YouTube about how to use your phone camera. Do something how to use your phone camera. Do something. If you're using an ILC of some kind, take some photos of some kind. Takes P, AV, and S, or T, and AV, and S, or T. And then you might try taking a few, photos in manual. If you're on a mirrorless camera, pretty much what you see is what you get. Pretty much manual is what's easy nowadays. You know what you're going to get easy nowadays. You know what you're going to get in the old one. If you had your face up to the viewfinder, what you were seeing on the screen wasn't what you were seeing on the screen. Wasn't what was going to go on a sense calculation. And then submit your best three or submit more photos to me, and we'll begin the next meeting with them. Okay? Everybody's muted. Did I actually do that? Everybody's muted. Did I actually do that to somebody? I didn't think I did. Didn't do it on purpose. Asked on mute. I guess I can't force them to unmute. So, Glenn, you came off.
I came off because I manually took it off. I got a message saying to unmute, but we really can't understand what you're saying at all right now. It's just really muffled.
Yeah, the good news is there's at least words on the screen. Yeah, we'll pick up the last couple. So began last couple right about there. Right about there, huh? Right, Betty? You said right about here. Thumbs up. Betty, you said right about here. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah, it's right in that area that started going muffled.
Okay. We'll just start next time with a few.
start next time with
the minutes on some of these last ones and minutes on some of these last ones, and hopefully we won't have that
Okay.
happen again.
Well,
Any other
discussion? You guys sound great.
so,
Discussion. You guys sound great.
Anything else?
Until you correct your speaker or your microphone, no, I don't think we can continue because we really can't understand what you're saying.
Well, but you guys can talk to each other. But you guys can talk to each other.
So,
Okay.
so.